On Continuum today, the story of a young woman who was abandoned at birth by her mother in the hospital, ended up living with her aging grandmother, and then shipped off to an auntie who had a restaurant. And at 5 years old, Som became like a domestic worker in this restaurant. And I remember her going by our home carrying big pails of garbage, and I had such a heart for this little girl. Well, today, this girl has become our youngest daughter, and here's the story.
A newborn baby sleeps peacefully in a hospital room in Thailand, unaware her teenaged mother has just abandoned her. An older couple arrives hours later to collect the baby, their granddaughter, to take her to her new home. Som Klintachuk lived the first 2 years of her life with her reluctant yet loving grandparents, until illness forced them to hand the toddler over to their daughter-in-law. Som's aunt already had 2 sons of her own, and she began to raise Som with a kind yet distant hand, insisting Som call her auntie instead of mom. As Som grew older, she struggled to understand why her parents left her.
My aunt told me not to call her mom, or just call her aunt, and hard for me to understand as a young girl to be adopted to in this family, knowing that you have a mom and a dad somewhere in Thailand, that they just don't want to take care of you. I was living with her 2 sons in Sirasha.
Som's relationship with her aunt grew not as one of a mother and a daughter, but more as a master and a servant. Som was given heavy chores to do in the restaurant, even at a young age, while her own older boys were indulged and shielded from work. But soon, Som's already grim circumstances would take a turn for the worse. Before Som had reached elementary school, her adopted brothers had begun sexually abusing her.
At one point in my life, there's many nights that my brother was doing like abusive stuff with me while my mom is not home, and I try many ways for him to stop or not come near me by locking my own room, or wear jeans to go to bed, or even sneak into my mom's room and lock her bedroom when she went out so that he cannot come and abuse me.
Som's difficult life had become a living nightmare. She carried her secret torment in silence for years, until fear compelled her to finally reveal the truth to her aunt about the abuse.
So one day I decided, I just have to tell her. And I said, so I named my brother, and I said, he came in the middle of the night when you're not around, and he was not doing nice thing to me. And then she looked at me and she just didn't say anything.
Som's aunt never said a word when she was told her own sons were sexually abusing Som. She never brought up the discussion again. The now 11-year-old girl continued to suffer nightly abuse at the hands of her cousins.
After that night, every night I still struggle to lock my room and hide behind my blanket, or just try to protect myself.
Som was devastated when her aunt did nothing to stem the abuse. Coupled with feelings of rejection from her mother and confusion at her aunt's failure to protect her, Som felt like an orphan without a home. Not long after, Som's aunt approached her with some surprising news.
After that, my aunt, she called me and she just said, I was planning for you to move into the orphanage.
Som's aunt took her down the street to the house of Al and Terry Purvis, a missionary couple and the parents of the El Shaddai family. At that time, there were 20 Thai kids living in the home, as well as Al and Terry's own children. Som did not yet understand her aunt meant to leave her with this strange family indefinitely.
I remember a day that she was talking to a white man, and what are they talking about? I just have no idea, but all I know is there's lots of Thai kids in there, and there's one redhead girl running up to me, and she just began to be friends.
Som connected with the youngest redhead of the El Shaddai family, a 12-year-old girl named Esther. The two girls hit it off immediately and began meeting around the neighborhood to play. Esther would later play a major role in helping Som adjust to what was to become her new life, without the only family she had ever known. Several days after their visit to the El Shaddai home, Som's normally distant aunt made an unusual request.
That night, she called me and she said, "Can you please come and sleep beside me? And I just want to embrace you the last time." And it was a very sweet moment for her to do that, because I just don't understand at all what was going on when we were younger and why she tried to avoid me and not accepted me as her daughter, even though she adopted me legally into her family.
Som was heartbroken and couldn't understand why her aunt would send her to an orphanage when she had already adopted Som into her family. But the next morning, the white man Som had met days earlier arrived at the door.
One day, a Jeep parked in front of my house, and I was like, "Oh, that's a weird car." And then my aunt came to me and said, "Did you pack?" And I said, "Pack what?" She said, "You have to pack your clothes." So I went into my room. I had a very small, probably 2 bag full of my clothes, and we just hop into the Jeep and go.
Without fully grasping the situation, the young girl who'd been passed from place to place climbed into the Jeep to begin a new life with yet another family.
My first day in El Shaddai family, I felt really welcome. I remember a young girl about my age. She ran to me and took me upstairs in her room and just swept away all her clothes so that I can put my clothes in there. And our first couple of months, it was very difficult. Not so long, I became very close with them, and we had built really good relationship in our family. My mom and dad love me just the way they love their own kids. Me and my dad are very close. I love him so much, and he's a man of wisdom. And I love to spend every moment I have with him just talking about life, and he would just impart so much what he had learned, and the love of God in him was just so shine through me that I feel like, this is the family, this is the mom and dad that I always wanted.
Som's life began in terrible circumstances, but God sets the solitary in families and gave the young girl everything her heart desired: a father and mother to love and protect her, a family to belong to, a place to call home.
When Som came into our home, obviously she'd been very abused. By that time, she was like almost a young teenager. And the transition for her from broken life into healed life was quite amazing. We had to do a lot of hard work, and I remember those days, very great challenges. But I'm so proud of this young lady, a great leader in our ministry today. And in a couple months, she's going to be married. We are going to have a great celebration of the goodness of God and what He does to take the poor out of the dust heap and set their feet on the rock, Christ Jesus. Oh, and you want to come back next week to watch Continuum today, and we'll have more action for you from this side of the Great Commission.